This is Karen with Karen's Cards and More, and tonight I want to welcome you to another Monday Facebook Live. And if you're watching the replay on YouTube, I'm glad you stopped in to see what we were going to be making. And so let's just go ahead and take a look at the card that we're going to be making tonight. We're going to make this thank you card. And as with all the projects on Monday night during the month of July, we're going to be featuring the Pansy Patch stamp set and the Pansy dies. There's the die set. And I'll show you when we get towards needing the dies, I'm going to show you what we need, what we're going to be using for that. And we'll get more into that in a few moments. But this is the set that we're going to be using. This is the card. This is the front, featuring some of the new in colors. And then there's the inside. So it's thank you. The little things you do make such a big difference. Really easy card, but you get a lot of wow for your time. So let's go ahead and talk about what we need. In addition to the dies that, the Pansy Die Set, I also used the layering circles dies. And I used, if you look at, there's two sets and they alternate. So this is the smallest, then the next, then the next, then the next. And that's how they layer. And here's the scalloped ones. So what I used is, I used this scalloped one and this for the regular one. The regular one's in white. The scalloped one is in the pale papaya, which is one of the new in colors. So let's look at the card measurements. We start with a piece of basic white, and this is a traditional A2 card. It's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Here's those die cut circles that I told you about. This one's in basic white. This one's the pale papaya. Then I have a piece of pale papaya that is 2 1/4 by 5.5. And then I have this piece of designer series paper that is part of the Pansy. If you ordered the Pansy Patch Suite, the Pansy Petals Suite, you would have got the designer series paper. If you don't have this, for the month of July, we're having 15% off of designer series paper, so you might want to take a look at that. But this is the Pansy Petals designer series paper, and it's a pale papaya checked is what I used, and it's 2 by 5 1/4. Okay, so again, let's take another look at the card. And we're going to start, let's start by doing these elements. The little bud here on the stem and this leaf are cut out of cardstock. And so let me bring in the dies so I can show you what I did. So for the bud and the stem is this die here. And I cut it out of soft succulent. And I cut one of these smaller leaves out of soft succulent. Then for the little bud flower here, I cut this out of the Highland Heather. And then I cut this out of Fresh Freesia, which is one of the new in colors. It took me a minute to think of what I was trying to say. Then out of Blackberry Bliss, I cut this piece for the center. And then for the yellow, it's this series here. It cuts out 3 at a time. We're only going to use one of those. Now that's all the cardstock die cutting. But then out of basic white, I cut one of these. and 2 of these, and that's going to make this large pansy, and we're going to do some sponging on that to give it the color that we want. And then I cut 2 of these larger leaves out of the basic white, and again, we're going to do some sponging on that to give it the color that we want. Okay, so I'm going to get started. Let's go ahead and start with doing our sponging. So I am just going to bring in the die cut pieces that we're going to be working with. We're going to be sponging this piece. We're going to be sponging these 2, and then the 2 leaves. We're going to be using soft succulent for the leaves, and we're going to be using Highland Heather for the pansy. So let's start with the pansy, and I'm going to bring in just a sponge dauber. That's all I'm using. And I'm going to bring in Highland Heather ink. Now, what I wanted to do, I wanted this white in the center. So we're only going to apply, we're going to sponge ink to the outer edges of these, and then we're going to go over the very edge a little bit more. So let me show you what that looks like. So I'm just going to daub some ink on here. And I always start off of the piece, and I'm just going to come in, and basically I want to make a shadow. I don't want to go real dark to begin with, because I can always come back and layer more. You can go as dark or as light as you want. And I'm going to bring in, I'm going to get me another dauber. That one, I've used it so much it's starting to come apart. And I'm just doing the same process, just sponging the ink on there. Just like that. And then I'm going to come back and just go along the edges. And I'm going to go back to this process of sponging my Highland Heather. I'm just sponging it along the edge, keeping the middle white. Okay. And then again, I'm going to go along the edges. I'm seeing that I have some shadows with my camera. I'm working on, my husband is building the new craft room, and this is my first time in my new studio. Hopefully coming up I'll do a video where I show you how my new studio turned out. But we haven't got the lighting just right yet, so hopefully next time I record something I'll have a better lighting. And again, we're going to do the same thing with this bigger pansy. And we're just going to start off the edge and then just come over onto the flower. And I'm not pressing super hard. I'm just giving a light, you just want to be light-handed. I always say you can add more, but you can't take ink off. So you definitely want to be lighter handed at first, and then add whatever you want to add. What's neat about these dies is they have this detail that it makes in the flower, and it's so pretty. It makes it so nice. It gives you a really good effect. And again, I'm going to do the same thing on the edge. I'm just going to come along the edge and get some of this purple, this Highland Heather, on the edge, just to give it a little extra detail. I like the way the dark purple right on the edge makes it look. So we're just going to do that. Now we're done with the purple. So then we're going to take soft succulent and we're going to do these leaves. And it's the same process that we just did. We're just going to come around. We're going to leave the center white because I want that effect of the white and towards the center. And then we're going to sponge the edges. And I'm going to do the other leaf. Like that. And again, we're going to go around the edges. Okay, we've got our sponging done, and I'm going to go ahead and close this up. Now, we can go ahead and start putting our flower together and the card together. The process of putting it together is really pretty easy. And I just noticed, of course, you always forget to bring something to the party, and I forgot my liquid glue, so I'm going to have to try to do all this with Stampin' Seal, which might be a little difficult. Parts of this you definitely want to use your liquid glue, but I'm going to try to make do with what I have here in front of me, okay? So let's go ahead. I'm just going to move these over a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and put some Stampin' Seal adhesive on the back of our checked piece of Designer Series paper. Okay, so we're just going to put that there. And then we're going to go ahead and attach the white piece to the pale papaya piece. Same process, we're just putting some adhesive on the back. And we're just going to try to center that. Just like that. So that's ready. Now let's work on putting our flower pieces together. So I'm going to bring in my die cut pieces as well as the ones that we sponged. And we're going to start working on putting things together. So let's start with this little bud. I'm trying to make sure I have everything. Okay, let's start with the little bud. So the fresh freesia piece is the actual fuller part of the flower, and the Highland Heather is the accent for on top. So I'm just going to come in with my liquid glue and put some liquid glue on the back of my Highland Heather piece. And I just use dots just like that, and that works really well. And then I'm just going to match the bottoms. So the curvature at the bottom should match of the two purples. And that'll make your flower come out right. Okay? And this is going to slide in. So here's our stem. This is going to slide in just like that. So I'm going to put adhesive on the back of my stem. And I'm just going to press this in place so that my stem comes up the side of my flower bud. Just like that. And we're just going to set that aside until we get ready to put it on the card. So now we're going to come back in with our pansy and we're going to start putting it together. So what we need to do, we need to take, these are both leaves that we need to put together. Now you can put these however you want, like as wide as you want. If you think about the look of a pansy, that's what you're going for here. So basically we want to glue it like that. So we're just going to glue one at a time. So I'm going to come in with some liquid glue. And I know that it's going to be on the, I want to put glue on the right side of this petal. So then I'm just going to come in and press that together. And then we're just going to glue the other petal. And I got that a little bit, I think that looks better. And with the liquid glue, you have time to move them a little bit, which is nice. If you were trying to do this with like tape, adhesive tape, you wouldn't have any time to move it. So that's what's good about the liquid glue with this. I'm going to flip this back over. And I'm going to just press this in like that. Just like that. Now this is our centerpiece. And it's going to go just like that. I'm going to turn that over and put some adhesive on it. And just dotting. It really doesn't take a whole lot of this to make it stick. So I just, especially on little pieces, I just do dots. And that seems to work out really well. If you have little craft tweezers, sometimes those are good for these little pieces to help put them together. And what I did is I put the round part of the circle right up against the round part of the big petal. And where they meet, that's going to be covered by the yellow center. So that's how I did mine. And then I'm just going to put a dot of glue right there in the center. And then what I like to do, because my fingers just get fumbly with it, I just come in with take your pick tool. The end is gummy on the one end, and it will pick things up. So I'm just going to pick up my yellow center. And use that to help me get it placed. Okay? So we're just about done. Trying to make sure I have everything. Looks like I am missing one. One of my leaves has went flying somewhere, which is no big deal. We can always die cut another. You would think that it would have to be right here. Oh, I found it. Good. That keeps us from having to die cut another one. This has been the craziest night. Okay, so let's bring our card together. Now the reason I didn't do the stamping on the front first is because I want to make sure that I get the focal points, which is here. I wanted to get that where I wanted it, placed where I wanted it before I put the thank you. If I stamp the thank you, and let's say I stamped it too high, that's going to mess up my whole focal point. So you definitely probably want to stamp that last. So I'm going to come in first with this banner piece, and I'm just going to put some adhesive on it. And I kind of put this, I centered this on the card front. You could change that up even if you wanted to. You wouldn't have to center it. You could go more to the top or more to the bottom, but I just tried to center it. So I'm just going to lay that down there. Now, the way we put the adhesive on, it's not right up to the edge, so we're still going to be able to stick our stem of our flower down in there. If you go all the way around it, then you're not going to be able to stick that flower in. So keep that in mind too. So this is going to go here. And let's go ahead and attach this before we start putting our flower on it. And I'm just going to put some adhesive on the back. And I aligned the bottom with the bottom of the peach. I didn't go down below it. I just lined it up. I liked the look of it being lined up. Let's go about right there. And then I'm going to press that down. Okay? Now we can go ahead and start building our flower. I always do a dry run before I glue. I don't glue that down until I put it together on here to see where I want things. Then I know about where I'm gluing. And you could change your mind every time of how you wanted placement. So I always do a dry run without glue before I start gluing. And so I want to do something like that. So keep in mind, when you're gluing this down, you either need to glue your leaves, your trio of leaves first, and then glue this over top, or you need to glue just the top part of this flower to be able to slide your leaves underneath and glue them, and then you can glue the top down on top. So I think that's the way I'm going to do it to make sure I get the leaves where I want them. So I'm just going to come in with my liquid glue, and I'm just putting glue on the top part of the flower so that I have room to manipulate those leaves. And I'm getting this set where I want it. Like that. And I want the die cut leaf on the bottom. So I'm just going to put my liquid glue on it. And I'm going to slide that underneath. And push that down. Now I'm going to come in with my other leaves. And I'm just going to decide where I want them in relationship to the flower and the other leaf. And I'm just going to do the same process. Just going to put my adhesive on the back, my liquid glue on the back. This is going in between my flower and on top of the die cut leaf. Pressing that down. And we got one more leaf to do. Same thing, just applying my liquid glue on there. And I'm going to come and slip it under here. Just like that. Now, I'm going to turn this a little bit so that I can make sure. And I'm just going to lift the edge of the flower up and stick my liquid glue under there. And just get a little bit under there. And then I'm going to push my flower down. And there I have my flower glued down. And I got everything right where I wanted it. And the only thing left is to figure out where we want our bud. And I wanted it to go beneath. And you can, and what I did is I actually ended up cutting a piece of the stem off, and I don't have my scissors handy, so I'm just going to rip it, which is probably not the best idea. But I wanted to be able to slide it in, but I don't want it to go over the fold because I still want it to get in the envelope. So you can decide where you want it, how you want it to go. And I like that placement. So I'm going to put some liquid glue on the back of the flower. Slide that in there and press that down. And then I'm just going to add a little more liquid glue to hold that in place. Just like that. Now we're down to our stamping, and that's really all we have left to do. So let me bring in, I'm going to start with the black Memento ink. We're going to do our thank you on the front. So I'm just going to tap it in my ink. And you can decide exactly where you want to place it. I'm going to go right there. And I forgot to put my foam mat underneath. When you're working with polymer, it's always best if you stamp on your foam mat. You'll get a better image. So I'm going to bring my mat in to stamp the rest of it. So then on the inside, we're going to use the black. And we're going to do the part in the middle that says, trying to read it upside down and backwards. I'm going to read it from the inside of here. It's hard to read through the block for me. The little things you do make such a big difference. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to ink that up with the black Memento. And I just put this in the center. Just like that. And then we're going to use the Fresh Freesia and the Highland Heather. We're going to start with the Fresh Freesia, and we're going to use this full bud. There's two pieces that form the bud. There's the solid one, and then there's this one that looks like just parts, random parts. That's what we're going to do with the Highland Heather. We're going to do the solid piece with the Fresh Freesia, okay? And we're just going to put one in each of the bottom corners. So I'm just going to ink that up. There's one. There's the other, and I'm just tilting mine just to give them a little character. You can definitely do it whichever way you want. And then I'm going to come in with the Highland Heather with the detail. And if you line the round bottoms, you'll get your definition. Again, I'm just going to come over and add my definition to this one. And there we have our card. Fold it. I'm going to go ahead and close up my ink pads. And all we have left is to put a few gems on there. If you got the Hydrangea Haven Suite when it was offered, these gems came with that. If not, you can order these separate. And I'm using the, so there's a pink, then there's a medium purple, then there's a really light purple, and then there's a really dark purple. And I'm trying to compare this to my card to see, and I use this medium purple here, and I'm just going to use 3 of them. You could choose any of the gems that you wanted, whatever color you like. And I'm just using 3 of them. And spacing them just for a little extra bling. Just across the top. And there we have it. A really simple card, but I love this Pansy set. If you like flowers and you like playing with putting them together yourself with the die cut, then you'll really like this set. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's card. Again, I apologize that there was that little span in there where I had to go get a few things that I forgot, but I'm glad you stuck with me. I hope you enjoy the card, and I hope you'll play around with different color combinations. Next week's going to be a really fun project. We're going to do a pocket card that you could put a package of pansy seeds in. Really cool card that we're going to do next week, so I hope you'll join me for that. Check out the Facebook page and the Facebook group, and you'll be able to see the projects that I have lined up for August so that you can order what you need to be able to craft with me for those. And I will craft with you again soon.